How's everybody doing tonight? So here I am, Garbanzo's Pizzeria, down in southwest or southeastern side of yep, down the southeastern side of District 21, out here at the corner of Lake Hazel and 5 Mile. So it's one of those great little community centers out here. We got Paul's IGA out here. Got a convenience store. Got a Walgreens across the street. Zamzo's recently came in and put in a brand new store here too. Just on the other side of Lake Hazel from us. We're sitting right next to one of the Ada County libraries here. Pretty good, nice central location. I got some pizza about ready to come in for anybody who cares to come down and join us. Um, but yeah, so really curious what do you guys want to talk about tonight? Yeah, otherwise I'm going to end up on one of these rants about something that while it's important to me, may not necessarily be so important to you. So, come on. Any ideas? Okay, so one of the things that happened the other night, um, Paulette Jordan, Brad Little, they sat down, had a little debate. Yes, they had a little debate. Now, I know an awful lot of you people out there, one issue voters. Yeah, you got your one thing that's really important to you. And it's like almost everything else, take a back seat to that. I mean, and I admit, some of these are some really big issues. So you have the issue of pro-choice versus pro-life. That's out there. Um, what do you consider the limits on that? At what point do you consider opportunity for choice is gone? At what point is it life? You got other issues. You got gun rights. Gun rights are a big one. I know there's an awful lot of people who come out against Paulette Jordan because she's not pro-gun enough. I get that. I understand that. Second Amendment. With the Second Amendment, we can keep the rest of our rights, right? Um, you got people out there. Are we really good with the status quo? We've had pretty much Republican governors for what, 35, 40 years now? Ever since Cecil Landris. And we've seen a steady trend in what's been happening in Idaho. Now, they're consistent. I'll give them that. The GOP is consistent. They keep doubling down on. It's essentially been failed policies for the past 40 years. Hey, Robert. So, is that something we really want to do? Do we want to keep throwing good money after bad, voting for Republicans for the next, 10, 20 years as if the last 40 weren't bad enough? I mean, we moved from 11th clear down to the bottom of the heap in education. I don't necessarily think that's the way we want to go, especially when we got issues in our education centers. Idaho schools. Idaho still owes $40 million of what was supposed to be school money and still being used to pay off some contract for internet to all of our distant locations. It still hasn't been satisfied. $40 million wasted. Come on. Is that really where we want to keep going? I think it's something we really need to step back and take a look at. I don't think the Democrats are the answer. They definitely aren't the end-all, be-all. Even if we do get this blue wave that comes through and Paulette and the rest of her crew come in and take charge, what's going to happen in 4 years? What's going to happen in 2? Just because Idaho flips once, Democrats might get an idea. DNC might get an idea. Next thing you know, all of these really good people that you see running for election right now, great intentions, great heart. Next thing you know, you got the DNC down here in poor little Idaho, trying to convince our Democrats, our Idaho Democrats, how to do business. Yeah, so we really need to start looking at options. You know, I'm coming out as a libertarian candidate. I think being a libertarian is very important. It's one of those things that gives us another option. You know, when you start looking at other parties, we don't have to keep going with the same old brands. I mean, GOP brand, the DNC brand, right, has it really done anybody any good over the last 40 years? You know, Clintons came along. They didn't do us any wonders. Bush started his wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. They didn't do us any wonders. Obama comes along after that, tacked on another 5, 7, 8, I don't know. I think I lost count of how many places we got troops in while Obama was in charge. You know, now we got Trump, and we're still not out of all those places that Trump sent us, or that Obama sent us. So I mean, we really need to start looking at brands outside of the DNC, outside of the GOP, and start looking for things that really mean something to us as people, as you know, what's important in our communities. You know, seen the DNC, seen the GOP, they consistently sell us out left and right to the corporations. One corporation wants that, DNC says, okay, you're good to go. Another corporation wants this. Hi, David. And GOP says, okay, yeah, let's make it happen. Next thing you know, we're all slaves to the corporation, wage slaves. Still want to know exactly what it was Idaho sold out in order to get an Amazon distribution center here in the state. You know, that's going to be a funny one. Reason why? What was it Bezos just said? Hey, minimum wage, $15. Yeah, Bernie, I'm going to go ahead and pay my people minimum wage, $15. I'm going to go ahead and set the bar. So what does he do? Immediately takes all of the bonuses that he was paying the people before him, and he's committed money and resources. He has said he is avidly going to support a $15 federal minimum wage. You know what Bezos just did? He just priced all the mom and pops out of business. You know, our ability to compete with Bezos right now, he's got so much money. His pockets are so damn deep right now that he can continue to dump and undercut, our local brick and mortars, our friends and family. We can't compete with his prices because he just keeps dumping. We managed to set a bare minimum profit in order to live. Bezos comes along and undercuts it until finally we go out of business and can't do anything to compete. So, Bezos, all you people are bitching about a $15 minimum wage. That fight's lost. It's gone. $15 minimum wage, it's going to happen. So, what are we going to do to prepare for when that actually hits Idaho? Because it's coming. Accept it. Pain in the ass that it is. We need to do something to start looking at building up Idaho's economy so that when that $15 minimum wage does hit us, we're not totally screwed. So what sort of solutions do you think are going to work in order to beat that? Legalize Idaho, definitely. And that's going to employ people. We legalize it right. That's agricultural production. Get a couple of those small family farms out there producing, high potent medication, recreational if we manage to get it that far. That's income. That's jobs for people. They'll be able to go out, work, hit the fields, farm, harvest the crop, bring it in. All of the great things that come along with that. Industrial hemp. Harvest the flowers, be able to work with those, bring them down, break it down, turn it into medicine. You still have all of those other byproducts that come along with the legalization process. What are you going to do with the stocks? What are you going to do with the seeds? An awful lot of these different options. A lot of them are reusable. All those stocks from all that hemp make plastics, make oil. We actually got so many options with legalized hemp. as far as, you know, byproducts, industry that we can work with, hempcrete, building houses. You know, that's whole new building material that we can bring in and actually start doing stuff with. You know, the ability to create these extremely sustainable houses. You know, throw up these hempcrete block walls, well insulated, good for those winters around here. Throw in some air conditioning, or even good for the summers. Um, you know, it definitely legalize Idaho is a big one. And the other side effect from legalize Idaho, reduced healthcare costs. And let's admit it, if you have a medicine that works so much better than those opioids that are currently being pushed by the pharmaceutical companies, aren't you going to take it? You know, especially if you can grow it in your own garden, or if you got a neighbor who's really good at growing it. You know, you make this happen. Cuts down on healthcare costs. You know, so much better for everyone. Being able, you know, I think currently, what is it? U.S.'s healthcare costs currently exceed, you know, even what the DoD is spending right now. DoD is spending $700 billion a year. U.S. health costs, you know, not the government alone is spending close to $1 trillion on healthcare. You know, and that's not even considering what's coming out of pocket. School funding, yep, school funding. A lot of that sin tax, a lot of the taxes that are associated with the legalization process go to funding schools. Actually helped cover some of those bills that Luna ran up for us the 8 years he managed to do so much damage. Jails. 25% of Idaho's prison population are in for felony possession. You know, 20%. Out of the 8,000 prisoners in Idaho prisons right now, 20% of 2,000 of those are in there for felony drug possession. You know, we offer clemency, convert their sentences, and get them back out. That opens up 2,000 beds. We'll actually won't have to ship our prisoners out of state anymore. Be able to focus more on the dangerous ones, your rapists, your murderers, your people who like to go around assaulting people. We'll actually be able to keep them in prison rather than giving them early release to make room for these people who are on felony drug charges. No new taxes, definitely. We need to work on getting the taxes out. Yes, thank you. Have some pizza, Katie. Robert, eat. That's what we're here for. Definitely no new taxes, and we definitely need to work on getting rid of some of the old ones. Yeah, legalization is going to work on getting rid of the big pharma monopolies, without a doubt. As soon as we have options to the opioids they keep pushing down our throats, you know, Trump, he actually went and gave a big contract to one of his organizations that actually produced a lot of the opioids that are responsible for the current opioid epidemic. And really, do you really want to pay the Pharmacore company that created the addiction to solve the addiction? We can do better with legalized cannabis. You know, better pain management system, and it helps with so many other things. You know, we currently use opioids for so many things that cannabis is so much better suited for. You know, we have the psychoactive aspects of cannabis that can help relieve issues with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and, you know, shell shock. Just how important cannabis is to being able to help veterans in recovery. Critical. You know, being able to get that legalization bit taken care of is going to help so many ways all across the board. You know, I honestly don't know why it's taken us this long to do it. However, because it has taken us this long to do it, we have so many examples of what to do and what not to do that we can't help but do it right. Go in, take a look at the proper zoning arrangements, being able to give the right permits to different organizations to be able to open up clubs, being able to set up the dispensaries in appropriate areas, make sure they're in properly zoned areas so that the security is good for them. And right now, until we actually get people like Scott Howard up in, Scott, until we get people like Scott Howard up working at the federal level in U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, it's still illegal. As long as it's illegal, it's a cash-only business. And this was one of those things we covered at the Cannabis Town Hall the other day. Huntington, just across the border. The amount of money that goes through that particular dispensary on any given day, just makes it a really dangerous target. People can't go in and buy anything unless they're carrying cash. At the end of the day, they got to do something with all that cash because they're not using credit cards, they're not doing receipts. It's cash walking in, and at the end of the day, that's cash leaving. And they wonder why there's this illusion, and it's a lie. It's not the drugs themselves that are attracting crime. It's the amount of money that's going into the communities that's sitting around those dispensaries when people go in to purchase.
Well, if you don't believe it's coming into Idaho, go to Huntington, check how many places are there.
Right? Huntington, stuff's coming back across the border. Huntington, it's across the border. Everybody's driving across, picking up their stuff, turn around and bring it back. Whether they're bringing it back as an oil, whether they're bringing it back as a vape fluid, whether it's CBD, whether it's edibles. Huntington, nearly every license plate sitting outside of that dispensary is out of Idaho.
Well, and it's putting drug dealers out of business.
It's one of the other things. Legalize it. The black market goes away. When everybody knows where they can go and get it safely with reasonably assured quality, why the hell trust the kid down the street?
And when you go into the shop, they're not trying to get you to try anything else either.
That's true. When the black market goes away, when you show up and your dealer's out of weed, he's not trying to sell you on something else. Like his latest batch of meth or heroin.
About anything.
Yep, just about anything. Sooner we get that legalized, sooner the black market starts to fade in Idaho. Other issue, big one. Child Protective Services in the state of Idaho. One of their popular reasons for going in and taking kids away from the parents are marijuana possession. Yep.
We've worked with at least 2 families in Idaho.
They don't even need another excuse. Kids can be well fed. Kids can have clothes. Kids can be well taken care of. Oh my God, Mama smokes a little weed on the weekend. Take them away. We can do better than that. We got to do better than that. We got to do better for the future of Idaho. We got to make sure that that sort of BS stops. Yeah, well, we're definitely working on getting the candidates out and voting for pro-freedom choices right now. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be so good this time. Again, this goes back to those people, who are single issue voters. You got to pay attention to what your issue is. Now, I know friends really big on, reformation of the criminal justice system. Reforming. Yep. Definitely need to work on fathers' rights. Fathers' rights are a big issue.
Rights in general.
No. Fathers' rights, mothers' rights. We need to work more on an atmosphere of cooperation, cooperative parenting rather than adversarial parenting. And that's a tough one. I'm a divorcee. I got 5 kids. Right now I'm about 3,000 miles away from them all. I'm not able to go to their school functions. I'm not able to see them perform. I wasn't there for my oldest daughter's graduation before she went and joined the Army. She's happily stationed right now, married, 18 years old, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Working there as a helicopter pilot. Aircraft mechanic. She works on helicopters. Thinks she wants to be a pilot, but that's a little bit down the road. Right now she's focused on fixing helicopters and actually getting her life set up. She's happily married. My son, he just turned 20. He was here for my birthday last week. That was a good time. But he's working for the Air Force down in Florida right now. I still have 3 other children that are spending time with their mother. They're in Maine. They're going to school. They're doing good things. Awesome kids. But I'm 3,000 miles away. We really need to work. But that's one of the things. Here in Idaho, there's situations where the parents live less than 5 miles apart from each other. And these kids will never see their other parent. Never. And sometimes it's for the stupidest of damn reasons. We can do better.
It doesn't make you a bad parent. It makes you broke.
Yeah, child support issues. Father's rights, child support issues. We definitely need to work on making all of those better, being able to enable parents to actually parent appropriately, be functional adults working in our communities, raising their children, helping raising other people's children by setting a good example of what it is to be a good neighbor. Get out of the house, see what your neighbors are doing, hold a neighborhood barbecue. Come down, sit down, talk with us. But I mean,
Take out what's taken our life. Putting it all online.
I mean, we got some really good people that are running for office right now. And it sucks. I wish they were libertarian. God, I wish they were libertarian. I wish they didn't go and associate themselves with any of those ugly brands that they did. But these are still local people. They still got good hearts. They want to do the right thing. And who knows? They might actually be successful for the first 2 or 3 years before the DNC comes down and sinks their hooks into them.
Well, just getting rid of hearsay in family court would be nice.
Oh, yeah. Getting rid of the hearsay evidence in family court.
I can make up any accusation I want, and I don't have to prove it. You have to prove me wrong. How does that work? And it's the most precious item in your life, your kids. They can take your car. They have to have more evidence to take your car than they do your kid. Something's wrong with that.
Right. We definitely need to fix the system. We need to restrict the options available for CPS. They have to have a good reason. They should have a damn good reason they want to come in. And it better follow due process too. And right now, Idaho family courts, there's no due process in them. None whatsoever. What else we got to talk about here? Enjoy work, Scott. Definitely. Have a good evening. But see what else we got that's real good to talk about.
Second Amendment.
Second Amendment. Keep your guns, man. Keep your guns. Yeah, that's a big thing. That's an important thing. We want to make sure that you have your rights. They keep your rights. Second Amendment is the one that ensures, that people are going to respect all the rest of your amendments. I almost feel like that's a horse that we're still beating. It ain't dead yet. There's still people out there trying to take that right. But definitely, we need to focus on that one. 2 years, it's one of the things we're headed into right now. Okay, November 6th, we're less than 3 weeks away. Guess what happens in January? Everybody you voted for in November, they go in and they take office. The thing is what is it you voted for? Who did you vote for? What was it they promised you? You know, did you accept the promise of, one of our professional politicians saying that after 10 years of doing nothing, they're going to do something different in the next 2? Oh, no, well, that's the way you want to play it. You can play it that way. But, I mean, seriously, the politicians spent 6, 8 years sitting in the office, and all they've done is make your situation worse than it is right now with regards to your rights, with regards to our state budget, with regards to the number of people that have had to deal with Idaho's Department of Corrections, whether it was probation, parole, regardless of what they ended up going in for. Chances are it wasn't for something that most of us would consider worth going to prison for. But it's important you understand who you're voting for and what it is. Yeah, Chris, definitely. We've become so isolated these days. I mean, seriously, most of us know our internet friends, our Facebook friends, better than we do the guy living next door to us. Get out, throw a party, let the block know you're alive. Invite a couple of them over for a beer.
Or when you have a problem with one of them, go talk to them instead of calling a homeowners association.
Right? Talk to your neighbor if you got a problem. Settle the dispute at the lowest level. Don't need to be running to the homeowners association. What's the other one? The big one. Who's that gal that was upset because she saw the black guy in her apartment complex? Called the cops on him? Come on, man. We're better than that. Know who your neighbors are. Pay attention to what's going on.
I introduced myself to the neighborhood by catching the thing on fire. I got the field behind me on fire.
Well, we definitely don't want to burn everybody out. That's not necessarily the best introduction.
No,
but I mean, seriously, we can do better than, meeting our neighbors by threatening to call the police on them. Most people are good people. They want to be good people. Most of them are willing to work with you. They're willing to help you when you need a hand.
At least give them the chance.
But you got to know them. You got to give them a chance. Yeah.
Oh, and anybody in District 21 that wants yard signs, send us the address. We might even be able to deliver it.
Yeah, you hear that? District 21. District 21, you're up and about, you want yard signs, give us a call. We'll be able to get you one. Joe Evans, Idaho Senate, District 21, Libertarian candidate. All your rights, all the time.
Self-funded. No George Soros
it's
money.
self-funded, no George Soros money. No PAC money. No corporations have donated. No companies have donated. To date, everything has come out of my pocket. Something neither of my opponents can claim right now, considering both of them have received party money. Cliff Bear, Don Pierce, both of them, they're out there. They got a war chest. Take a look at it sometime. Give it a Google. Check, see what's going on with Secretary of State. Yeah, Chris, we definitely need to spend more time with our friends. In life. Get together, go out and have a drink sometime. No shortage of great places in Boise right now to go out and have a drink. Or even just sit down for a piece of pizza. Like I said, we're here at Garbanzo's right now. Got some pizza here for somebody who wants to come out and actually talk to me in person rather than just listen to me do my little monologue. Yeah, I know that's a bad one for me. I got a lot of you knows and you knows and you knows. Working on it. I'm trying to find something a little bit more appropriate to say for my little space makers while I'm trying to decide what it is I want to say, what it is I want to talk about. But so what else? Public lands. And that one always seems to be a bit of a sticking point. An awful lot of libertarians out there that don't think it's a good idea for federal government to maintain control all those federal lands that are within the borders of Idaho. You know, as if somehow we'd be better at managing it than they would. That one's a tough call. The reason why is because Idaho doesn't have the budget to do it. Matter of fact, most of that land right now is being maintained by Californians and New Yorkers and guys from Massachusetts. They're the ones who are paying the taxes right now to keep the firefighters employed, fighting those fires in those federal land national forests right now. It's going to be a little bit till we're actually self-contained enough, financially stable enough as a state to where we could actually take over that responsibility. Admittedly, we got people like Scott Howard. It'd be fabulous for that, because as soon as they can get up there at the federal level, start cutting out how much revenue you guys spend on federal taxes, you know, what is it, 35% on federal income tax? Jesus, man.
What do you think about I can't remember the technical name for it, but it's a property switch, where the federal government goes ahead and sells to, say, a big corporation that's putting in solar panels, but then they move their protected species 1,000 miles away to somebody's, say, ranch area. So they stop the rancher, but they allow the big corporation to purchase that property.
That one's a tough one. Reason why is because I'm a big fan of conservation. You know, we've already gone through an awful lot of trouble where we've lost so many different wildlife species that we'll never ever be able to see again. You know, where your opportunity to see a carrier pigeon, you know, you got to go to the Smithsonian in New York to see that. You know, yeah, we got a few old relics that we managed to preserve. The Idaho Natural History Museum, Morrison-Knudsen Nature Center has a few. I mean, really, is the way you want to see your wildlife in some museum? Right? It's not even in a zoo. It's dead. You know, we definitely need to look at being more cautious about the way we treat the animals, you know, the wildlife. We need to be able to maintain that diversity out there. But at the same time, we can't let that diversity overrule our needs as a nation, as a community, as a state. You know, our natural wilderness. We've got an awful lot of people right now, you know, who are fighting some of the things that would actually make it easier to manage our wilderness areas. You know, we've got studies that have proven that introduction of keystone species into key areas like Western Yellowstone have helped significantly with ability of the Federal Wildlife Department to actually manage those lands, be able to protect them, maintain populations of the deer, of the elk, even of the bison. You know, of course, the problem is those keystone species happen to be species like bear and wolves. You know, you're not paying attention to what they're doing as pack animals, you know, or roaming. Sooner or later, you end up with wolf packs that are preying on, you know, ranchers, you know, the cattle that are in the area. It's one of those things where we really have to pay attention to what it is we want to do and how we go about doing it. It's not like we have a shortage of examples and case studies to work off of. You know, there are people who've spent the last 40 years studying wildlife, studying, you know, and these are people who actually have impartial ideas about how to most effectively do it. You know, they're not coming in with this preservation mindset. They're not coming in with this corporate, you know, let's maximize our wealth out of this spot for, you know, the 10 years that they're going to let us lease it at a time, you know, where they just turn around and trash it and, you know, somebody else has to come in and clean up after them. You know, there's actually ways to work it, manage it, in cooperation with wildlife department, conservation organizations, and our local ranchers, so that we can use the land in a way that continues to be productive, not only for agricultural purposes, but for our recreational purposes, get to where we're actually able to go out and see the wildlife. You know, Hopefully we don't lose as many people to, wolves and bears as Alaska does every year. You know, it's a dangerous country out there. Again, good reason to protect your Second Amendment right. Now, what was it? The guy up in Alaska this last time emptied his 7mm Magnum into a bear. Once they finally dissected him, they found 2 hikers in him.
Wow.
Yeah.
The other 2 had bear spray, huh?
Actually, one of them did have their own gun.
Okay.
Yeah, the Cascade area. I think they definitely need to do better wolf management there. A number of those, I think, can actually be transplanted. I think the problem we're running into with Cascade area is they actually transplanted wolves that weren't appropriate for the environment there. They brought in the big timbers out of out of Canada. They transplanted the big timbers out of Canada. The original wolves that were there in the Cascade were of a much smaller variety. So you basically moved something that was a large scale alpha predator, alpha pack predator, and moved it into an area that is basically too powerful for. We've gone in, we've done a lot, the way we hunt through the Cascade Mountain ranges, we keep the populations down. And those wolves, the big wolves, there's not a lot of competition for them there except for the humans, which I think was one of those mistakes that conservation organizations made. Best of intentions, they just brought in the wrong keystone predator to try and fix what was going on. Yeah. Good reason to pack when you're up there, right, Chris? You were appropriately armed. That'd be a scary situation. But yeah, I think that's definitely something that we need to look at better management with. Cascades isn't really an appropriate place for allowing the wolf population to get too big. I think the Frank Church Wilderness area is one of those places where it would have been more suited. Just like they did in Yellowstone. There's enough wilderness area. There's enough off the beaten path. But again, you're up there. You're doing pack hunting. You go in with your horses. You need to pack for more than just the elk you're hunting. You need to pack for the predators that you're going to have to compete with while you're there. I don't know. I think the tickets, ticket auction, legitimate ticket auctions, not this BS that Idaho Fish and Game uses right now where, favorite people always seem to pick up ticket year after year after year, but actually legitimate raffle for the options of actually going into the backcountry during off season, not deer season or elk or but go in during one of the off seasons, understanding that you're there for one specific purpose, and that is to come back out with one of those trophy wolves. Again, I'm not an expert in that field. I think that's definitely something you need to get the experts in on in order to make that right. The reason why is because the wolf population, when it's at the right level, is good for the wilderness. You know, when the population, when the wolf population gets too big, it starts getting bad for the communities around the wilderness. When the wolf population gets too small, you end up with poor quality wolves. You know, they end up not being able to manage and take care of their packs properly. So it's going to be a tough one. Like I said, going to need some experts to weigh in on that one. Definitely way outside of my level of expertise. So, right, I know there's plenty of experts out there that want to weigh in. And some of them even have a really good idea of what that appropriate population level is. You know, how many wolves per 100 square miles? You know, what is it, 3, 4, 10? You know, they're great range animals. They're able to range over a large area. I mean, we want to keep them around. You know, they're majestic. They're noble creatures. You know, as long as you can maintain the population level at a good, you know, at a good point. You know, that comes back to proper wildlife management. You know, it's not just the wildlife populations that you got to manage, as far as the deer and the elk, the wolves, you know, but the way we handle the land. So right now, one of the problems we have when we lease 100 acres to a logging company, you know, they come in, they clear cut it. Takes 5-10 years for that clear cut to recover. Meanwhile, all the topsoil washes off, it washes down into the rivers, pollutes the rivers, makes it tough for the fish to swim. Then after they clear cut it, we turn around and we lease it to ranchers. Ranchers come in with a combination of goat and cattle, sometimes horse. And they end up cropping all of that grass that has been growing, that's in this now open plain, down to a level, and you end up with more of the same problem. Now there's none of that grass holding that topsoil in place. You know, and again, you lose more topsoil. So we definitely need to look at a better process of managing those leased lands. You know, when Bureau of Land Management comes in and says, okay, this is the way you're going to manage this land. You can go in, you can cut a certain percentage of it. You know, when you're done cutting a certain percentage of it, then we'll let the ranchers come in. Ranchers are going to be able to graze this section for, 2 months. Then they got to move their cattle over. You know, we need to do better at managing that land. You know, and I admit, it's going to suck for the ranchers trying to come up with this process of being able to manage the rotation. You know, because a lot of them just like to send them out there and let them graze until the cows decide to come home.
Well, a lot of them have been doing it for generations, actually have it down better than what the BLM tells them to do. You can see a lot of times where they do allow the ranchers, the ground and the wildlife, the grass life, plant life is better with the ranchers doing it, because the ranchers have that's something that can be handed down to their kids, so they want to take care of the land. Where BLM, they come out of college, they got all these book smarts, and they don't know how the stuff actually functions. You can't just read a book and know how to raise cows or take care of it. It takes experience.
But it's one of those things where I think we need to come to an agreement. We need to understand, a lot of these ranching families, they got a lot of experience in land management. We got to give them their due. But at the same time, we can't turn over all that public land strictly for the ranchers' use. It was given to us. It was given to Idaho, Americans. It was given to us to manage in perpetuity for the greatness of our country, for the greatness of our state. And, we can't just turn over these bold leases and say, hey, this property now belongs to your family for the next 100 years. Do with it what you want. No. We need to keep those things open for the wildlife, hunting opportunities, recreational opportunities. And there's ways to do that. The ranchers have a good idea. Some of our smart kids coming out of college, give them about 2-3 years working with the ranchers, understanding how to manage the land that the ranchers want to use in a way that you can continue to hunt continue to do the recreation, manage the actual wildlife in relationship to the agricultural production that we have going on in the area.
One of they just protected the multi-useness of the property. Because a lot of people don't understand, just because a rancher's out there, got his cows out there, doesn't mean that you're not able to ride your motorcycle out there or go camping out there. And that's what the BLM is kind of supposed to be there to do, is to make sure that, the ranchers don't say, hey, this is my property, get out of here, and not allow you to do that. And everybody's allowed to use the property by their rights.
But we can do better than we're doing right now with the land management. We can do a lot better. And a lot of it involves people who are actually smart with the right intentions in the right places, rather than individuals who like to take state money and run off to Africa and kill baboon families.
Or Californians dictating land policy here in Idaho.
Right,
Or
that's
vice
another
versa.
thing. Californians. We got Californians coming up and trying to dictate our land policy. Yeah, Sierra Club, real strong background in California, and actually managed to do some good things. Then they went a little too far. Take a look at what happened this last summer. A lot of that was because of well-intentioned but poorly managed conservation efforts. Now, again, we can do better. We can take the lessons learned from California. We can take the lessons learned from those periods in time where Idaho had made the mistake of turning over land to corporations where they just came in and raised it. We can do better than what happened with the Bunker Hill Mine Company. We can do better than what we're doing right now in eastern Idaho with the INEL and our radioactive waste disposal program. We can do so much better than that. We need to do better than that if we're going to keep Idaho healthy and alive in the future for our children. So, had an opportunity to talk with some of the people who Paulette Jordan's bringing in. Did you catch her debate the other night? She's come up with this really interesting idea. An Idaho State Bank. An Idaho,
I can get behind that.
we don't have to go to the Fed anymore for money, because Idaho will have a bank here. They want to base it off of the North Dakota model. North Dakota State Bank, whatever it is they call themselves. Same thing here. Rather than us taking out loans to send children to local colleges, the student loan program, we'd actually come in with a lower interest rate for students who want higher education than what's currently being offered by Sallie Mae.
If nothing else, decentralize it.
And the other thing is the interest on that is staying in Idaho. It's not going anywhere else. Profits from that turn around, get reinvested into the state. That's what I'm talking about as far as voluntarism goes. That's money going into the state. You're paying a little interest on this loan that got you this nice education. It's not taxes. It's not rent. Okay, well, it is rent. You're paying the interest. That's the rent on the money that you borrowed in order to get the education. But I mean, seriously, Idaho State Bank. A lot better than paying some of the taxes. One of the things Scott talked about earlier, Scott Howard, no new taxes. I think that's one of the other things that we can get behind. In addition to no new taxes, we can actually work on getting rid of some of them. One of them right now, one of the most regressive taxes in the state of Idaho, the grocery tax. And seriously, everybody needs to eat. Why the hell are we taxing people's food? Why? We all know they need to eat. 6% is too much to be paying on top of what, people need to survive. They go in, they buy $200 in groceries, and, here's this $12 surcharge on top of it all. They tell you get it back at the end of the year when you file your taxes. I mean, seriously, I could really use that $12 right now. Who couldn't, right?
Well, and why do we need a government forced savings plan?
Right.
My wife
Well,
went through that a bit. I don't need a government.
that's a tough one. Social Security, Medicare, big issues. You know, now it's not exactly something we can just fold. The reason why is because we got an awful lot of elderly people who have paid into that for 50 years now. Yeah. Now, admittedly, Congress wasn't busy robbing it right now to pay for their wars overseas. You know, there'd be no problem with the amount of money sitting in there.
Well, just anything and everything. But Social Security also funds CPS. Take your kids
Yeah.
and get bonuses.
Social Security pays for child support, child protective services. Now, isn't that a lie? What was that, Robert? 80% of the people, 80% of the children who are taken by child protective services that are introduced into the foster care system in this nation right now, 80% of them end up being part of sex trafficking.
That's the most recent survey is 86%.
And seriously, we're paying into Social Security. Social Security is paying CPS. CPS is taking our kids and then paying people in the foster care to prep our kids to go into sex trafficking rings. We got to do better, man. We have got to do better.
There's got to be accountability. That's the main thing. Is that
Yeah.
there's no accountability.
Accountability, top to bottom.
There is a
Yeah.
need to protect abused kids. There are kids that are abused, but when there's no accountability for the people who take the kids, what's to stop them for taking them for whatever reason they want?
Exactly. And that comes back to one of those issues. Now, an awful lot of people are really upset about Paulette Jordan. Reason why is because she's a Native American Indian. Yeah. She grew up on the reservations here in Idaho. They're sovereign nations here in Idaho. Yeah, they have their own tribal government. They have their own relationship with the federal government through the Indian Bureau or Bureau of Indian Affairs and a couple other organizations like that. It's one of those things, a lot of these reservations, they're third world nations within Idaho's borders. You know, a couple of people complain, well, they got the casinos. Well, the casinos are relatively new, man. They're relatively new. Those tribes who do have the casinos, they still haven't accustomed to having that kind of wealth available to them.
Well,
And not all of them have really managed it as well as they should. You know, you get a couple tribal leaders who all of a sudden realize they're rich, you know, and forget where they come from.
they
You
have-
know, they got infected by white man's greed, man.
they have corrupt government too.
Yep. Tribal lands got corrupt government too. It's like one of the things you look at here right now. Native American population sitting here on the reservations in Idaho. You know, when you step back and you look at the statistics, you know, 1 in 4 women are going to be assaulted before they're 21. You go onto the reservations, that number goes to 1 in 3. Part of it's the poverty. Part of it's the alcohol. Part of it's the stuff that they get into when they leave the reservation. You know, because right now in the state of Idaho State Police don't actually track what happens to people who disappear off the reservations. Montana just had an incident right now. There are 10 young Native women that have gone missing. They have no idea where they are. Families don't know where they are. Now, these aren't cases of runaways. These are 10 young women who were part of the community who have disappeared in Montana. Nobody knows where they are. Thing is we have no accountability for that in Idaho, because the Idaho State Police don't track when Idaho Native Americans go missing off the reservations. Not their job. They don't report it to the FBI. Nobody knows how many young Americans go missing off the reservations here in Idaho. And we know about 10 in Montana. You know, we know the same roads that go through those reservations in Montana come right down through Idaho and go through the reservations here in our state. You know, so when Paulette Jordan says she's really interested in making sure that human trafficking stops in the state of Idaho, I understand why. That's her family. It's our family.
When you got to understand how
Yeah.
much that society creates crime, just the transport of them, the holding of them,
Yeah.
the abuse of them. It basically creates an entire criminal organization with like the the most depraved morals you'll ever see.
So when you step back and you take a look at the things that are going on in our state right now, and when you actually step back and take a look, when you become politically involved, when you become civically engaged, when you're out working with these nonprofit organizations that have their causes, Legalize Idaho, the Human Trafficking Coalition, or the Anti-Trafficking Coalition that's here in Idaho, organizations that are working for accountability and child protective services, organizations working for accountability, in health and welfare, in the criminal justice system, being able to get people their rights back, being able to get people reintegrated back into the community. It's one of those things. We have 5, 6, 7 methadone clinics in Boise right now. We actually treat our heroin addicts better than we treat our, people who recreationally use cannabis. But we got people that are involved in all of these organizations, and they work hard. I'll give a shout out to Dawn Pierce right now. She's got a hunger project that she's been working on for the past 10 years. She works as a hospice nurse. She turns around, she volunteers, works for a hunger organization, trying to help eliminate hunger in the state. Helping make sure that homeless people get food, making sure that underprivileged families have access to food, by working with food banks, getting donations, bringing those in. Dawn Pierce, heart of gold. Don't agree with a lot of her policies or the way she wants to make things happen. But, she's out there. She's involved. She's working in these nonprofit organizations. She's helping out. International Refugee Commission. They've helped resettle countless number of refugees and integrate them into the communities here in Boise, and across the Treasure Valley. They started back when it was the Bosnian refugees during the Bosnian War. They've currently helped a lot of other ones coming in out of Central and North Africa. Some of the other war-torn countries they've been able to bring in. I know we got some really great communities out there that these people have become part of. They're hard workers, they're solid workers, they're great neighbors to have. They'll sit down, they'll talk with you, they'll chat with you, they'll have a cigarette, smoke with you. Because they've come from these communities where that human connection is still an important part of who they are. And they haven't been fully integrated into our computerized worlds where, you and I are best friends, but, we've never actually shook hands because, well, this little screen right here keeps coming in between us. But yeah, they got great kids, multilingual. It's sort of funny watching, these 5 and 6 year old kids translating between each other's parents, ask them whether or not they can stay the night, or, ask them whether or not they can borrow a cup of sugar, whether or not somebody's got the local spices from the local shop. And what is it? We got about a dozen Asian markets here in Boise. We got 4 or 5 halal delis, coming out of, great entrepreneurs. A lot of them have come in, brought native foods, native spices, facilitated trade, go down and not just the Greek taco, euros. I like to call them Greek tacos because that's really sort of what you got your meat, you got your bread. It's a taco, right? No, it's a euro. But they're not the only ones. The Bosnians have their own ethnic food. They have got a couple of taco trucks around here. They got Bosnian fusion stuff going on. I mean, seriously.
You get out a lot more than I do. I didn't know they had all that stuff.
We got a strong Korean community here in the Valley. 3 or 4 Korean churches. They got their communities going on. We got 2 synagogues.
Fancy
I think we're up to 3 mosques too. We're up to 3 mosques. You know, we got a really nice one right here in District 21 itself. Well, I shouldn't say nice, but it's usable. You know, it's just sitting a mile down the road from us, down at the corner of Cloverdale and Lake Hazel. I mean, it's a mosque right here in our neighborhood in District 21. You know, Islam, it's part of your community. It's a strong part of your community. You know, they get out, they volunteer, they put in the effort too. You know, they are your neighbors, and they're good neighbors. Um,
About time.
yeah, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. It's 8 o'clock now. Thanks for joining me for my hour-long conversation. Enjoyed having my cup of Joe with you. Have a good evening.